What is up? Welcome to another episode, GMAK, the Boiler Men. Today's episode was a request from one of our subscribers about chemical treatments for steam boilers, and I guess just partially talking about it, and then the other part maybe just giving our opinion on whether or not it's something you should be doing, or some of the advantages, maybe some of the disadvantages. So I think that's the topic we're going to get into today. If you're new to the channel, man, we appreciate you guys being here. If you don't mind, man, hit that subscribe button. Hit the notification button as well, so this way you can get updated on new videos we're posting every single day, whether it be shorts or these long form videos where we get a little bit more into the educational side of boilers, and we talk about blue collar and many other topics in the world of construction, electrical, plumbing, whatever the case may be, right? So that's kind of what this channel focuses on. Yes, we're very boiler centric because that's what we do, so we're a little bit biased, but I also have a background in contracting, so I'm able to bring a lot of that into the fold as well. Also, while you're here, man, smash that like button. It really helps us get the algorithm pushed up to the top. I'm putting a lot of work into content these days, so it would be greatly appreciated. And once again, man, we really do appreciate you guys being here. Hope you're having a wonderful day. I'm in my backyard shooting today. Still summertime out here, so figured we'd take care of cover the lighting, and it's nice to do them outside, even though I'm getting eaten alive a little bit right now, but that's okay. So talking about steam systems and chemical treatments, I have a slight background in chemical treatment. I worked for a company that had trailers, boiler trailers, which were basically temporary emergency boilers, and in order to maintain them, we were doing our own chemical treatment, so we were testing pH levels and some of the other items that are involved in chemical treatment. What I can say is I am a big believer in chemical treatment. I think when you have a steam system, keep maintaining the pH levels is super important, right? Because for some of you that may not know, the best water that a boiler can have is after it's gone through the process of changing from a liquid to a gas. So at that 212 to 213 temperature range, when it switches over to steam, when it goes up into the risers and comes back as condensate return, it's been deoxygenated, so it's the best water for the system, especially for the boiler, and especially steel boilers at that. With that being said, though, there's kind of a caveat to all that, because the truth is, I have a lot of jobs that have a ton of domestic, steam returns that are busted, and I don't know if it's like this everywhere, but I know in New York City, depending on the layout or the structure of the building, a lot of those returns run through apartments, run through lobbies, and a lot of these guys don't want to tear up the floors, and so you get a lot of return line leaks, hence putting a lot of fresh water in the boiler. And personally, under those circumstances, I'm not really one to push chemical. Yes, it would still be important to keep chemical in the boiler, but when you have return line leaks like that, you're basically throwing money out the window. So the truth is, if you're dealing with a situation where you have big time return line leaks and you're losing, anywhere from 500 to thousands of gallons a day in your steam system, then you should be focusing on getting that thing fixed before you even discuss putting chemicals in the boiler. I have managers all the time asking me about putting chemicals in, and the first thing I do, especially when they have these computer management systems like an NTEC, which is what we use a lot, and I can go into the system and I can see what kind of water usage is being placed for each building. So on any steam system, I can see, when I see the water meter running a lot in the thousands of gallons, we know there's a return line leak. So one of two things has to happen. One, I'll walk the building a little bit, see if I can find, sometimes they're in the boiler room, sometimes it's in a garage, some place that's a little bit non-consuming, where there won't be any issues. And then sometimes, unfortunately, it's in the apartments. So that's the first course of action. Once I have located those returns, we hope to fix those returns. And once the returns are fixed and I can go to the water meter and we're really not losing a lot anymore, then we can talk about chemical. With all that being said, on all the other jobs, I'm a big proponent of it. But here's another caveat, okay? So I have buildings that, like my stepfather as an example, he was not a big chemical guy. I never really understood why. We got into discussions about it years ago, but he wasn't a big proponent of it. And when I got to working with this other company, I got to learn the value of chemical in the boiler and other things, and how it's maintaining the steel, and you know, the things that come with it. I realized what the value was. But with that being said, a lot of these jobs that I have probably never had chemical. Could be going on 20 years, you know. And that's not every building. A lot of the buildings do have it. They've had a protocol in place. But my personal opinion, again, every time you see me get on these videos, man, I'm not coming to you with like facts. And that's not to say that I'm like making up. I'm just giving you my experiences. So like, as an example, if I had a building that's 20 years with no chemical and I have a steel boiler, you have to imagine it as, like, the best way I can explain it, and I'll explain it in layman's terms, is basically like there are these little oxygenated mites, and they get inside the boiler when you're constantly putting fresh water in, and they attach themselves to, whether it be the tubes or the steel shell itself. And when it does that, it starts to eat away at the steel. So essentially that's what ends up happening. And when I have a tube leaking, basically what happens is that little oxygenated mite eats right through it, and then I get water coming on what's supposed to be the fire side of the tube. And when I add chemical, like down the road, right, like we're 20 years into a boiler, 10 years into a boiler, 5 years into a boiler that hasn't had a chemical treatment, what do you think is going to happen? Because the idea behind that chemical treatment is to alleviate those little mites. It's supposed to keep them from attaching themselves to the steel. And when they're already kind of attached to the steel all over the place, and you now add chemical to it, and we remove those mites out, they kind of work against you. But at the time when you add that chemical, it's working with you, that they're there, because they're keeping that tube plugged in a way. It's eating, but it's also plugging, because once I remove them, then you can open yourself up to a lot of leaks and a lot of issues with the boiler. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't repair it, and once you repair it, then you can get into chemical treatments and all that stuff. But my opinion has always been, if you haven't been doing it for a long time, either you have to be aware of the fact that once you start adding them and adding in a chemical protocol, that you're going to end up with leaks in the system. So there's a couple of things that I just kind of like parameters, guidelines that I go by. That's one of them, is if they haven't had a protocol for a while, I'm not saying don't. I'm saying I'm going in and as the professional, and I'm letting them know ahead of time, like, yo, there's a good chance that you start adding chemical, that you're going to run into a lot of boiler leaks, and then I have to do boiler repair. Now, I still think it's a positive, especially in a building that doesn't have a lot of return line leaks, because once you have a protocol and you're putting a good company out there, and they're maintaining that chemical, it's going to be a huge benefit for your system. It'll keep the boiler working longer with a lot less issues. It doesn't mean you have no issues, but it definitely cuts down on, you know, boiler leaks and some system issues as well. Now, there are some cons, right? There's a lot of pros and there's a lot of cons, like anything else in life, man. You're going to have an upside and a downside. What's a downside? Well, one is there are a lot of companies out there, especially in New York City, just like a lot of things, and even in my business, just because my company exists doesn't make us a good company, if that makes sense. So what do I mean by that? Well, there are a lot of companies that do chemical treatment, but they're not really good at what they do, or they're lazy. Because the truth is, as somebody who does chemical, who has done chemical before, I got spider webs on me, you can over or under chemical the boiler. Now, in the over chemicaling of the boiler, It has a really negative effect. I've seen it cause major surging issues. And on top of that, a lot of these companies that are not very well versed in boilers or even in treatment, because a lot of times they just find like a run-of-the-mill guy to go in and just test and whatever and adds a little bit of chemical and walks away. But the other part of the job that's important is flushing out the boiler, right? So in the summertime, a lot of that contaminants that would flow back into the boiler from the steam headers, the risers, or the radiators is going to find its way back to the boiler. Now in the heating season, when the boiler is heating up to those high temperatures to create steam, a lot of that stuff comes to the top. So you have skimmer valves, and they're supposed to skim those contaminants out of the boiler while adding in the new chemicals. And then in the summertime, when we're not making steam, a lot of that junk that maybe still be in the boiler sits down to the belly of the boiler. And so part of their job is supposed to be to flush the backside of the boiler out, right? And 90% of these guys don't do it. So doesn't mean the chemical's not doing its job. It just means that you're relying on people to do a job that they're not really doing the right way, and it causes some negativity. Here go my wife's walking by, she's trying to get inside the video. Why don't you just hang it right there where the other one is? In the middle of a video, you see? She sees me doing content back here, wants to come back and anyway. Lost my train of thought, man. Okay, chemical treatments, yeah. So there's a lot of negativity that comes with a lot of these companies. I've had it myself many times over, where they come in and don't do the job they're supposed to do, and then they're relying on our expertise to treat them, to teach them how they should or shouldn't go about a job. So I find that to be very unprofessional. It's like, it's not like I have my business and then I'm gonna go ask somebody else how to run my business. It doesn't mean asking questions. Like, I have a lot of questions and that's normal stuff, right? But like, how are you gonna ask me about your business? So we do try to educate a little bit. There are a couple companies that we use regularly that are really good, that do the job the way they're supposed to, and it really maintains the boiler as well. And then on the flip side, you know, you get these situations where they're over chemicaling. Then I'm going in the middle of the summer, in the middle of the winter during heating season, and they're getting crazy surging and having a lot of issues with the system. And when I look back at the chart, because they'll leave a date when they were at the building last, I notice, you know, that they were there like a day before. And so I have to let management know to send the company back to flush out and redo, you know, all these things. So, you know, just to tie all this together, man, the truth is, and I know there was a little interruption here and I'm sorry about that, but the truth is, at the end of the day, it's a great thing to do for your system. You have to be aware of leaks, you have to be aware of water loss, you have to be aware of what company's doing it. But my consensus on it is I'm a big believer in it. I'm a huge proponent of it, and I really do think that it'll save the lifespan of your boiler. And I think it's a positive. The positives outweigh the negatives. Let's leave it at that, in my opinion. And now I see more people using them than ever before, and I think it's very smart. I mean, we've done anodes in certain boilers. I think they work too, but chemical treatment, a regular chemical treatment, is probably a more effective way of maintaining the boiler and the system. But you know, again, you got to be aware of the downsides just as much as you're aware of the upsides, and that's anything in life, right? So I hope this video helped you guys, man. I mean, I try to go into a little bit of depth, but I you know, one of the things I learned over the years doing this type of work is I can be over analytical at times. And I talk about things like with business lingo, and I try, so like when I make these videos, I try to, like, I don't want to say dumb them down, that's probably not the right way to say it, but I definitely try to speak in a little bit more like layman's terms of explaining it, because there's no reason to get into the science behind it. Like, I give you the reality of how it works, what it does, and how important it is, and I'm sure that should hit all the chords, you know. So if you guys have any questions, by the way, don't be afraid to ask down below. That's what the comment section is for, man. You can bash me in there too. You know, you can talk about the video interruptions, or maybe how I speak, or maybe you feel what I'm telling you is not factual. Doesn't matter. leave a comment. Let's talk about it. If you have any ideas for videos, because that's how this video came to be. Somebody left a comment, asked me to talk about chemical treatment, so I said I would, and here I am. Leave a comment below, and I'll do a video on it, man. Listen, we're always looking for content ideas. I know there's a million things I could be talking about, but like anything else in life, you know, you want to hear what your viewership is looking for, and I'll curtail my videos to suffice, you know, because it's all important. You guys, without the subscribers, without you guys watching these videos, man, it's I'm talking to myself, so I'm all about options. I'm all about hearing what you guys have to say. So leave a comment below. We appreciate you again. If you haven't already, man, subscribe to the channel. Also, if you haven't already, smash the like button. Help that algorithm, baby. And we appreciate you being here. Hope you have an amazing day. Hope you're killing it. Hope you're doing great in your business. Have a great day. Peace.